She was on his shoulders, wet hair whipping back, one hand in the air like some champagne-soaked gladiator queen, and that's when she screamed it, "My real man can handle me." I stood 12 feet away with a plastic cup of watered-down beer and a smile that probably looked like a twitch. Every head turned, some toward me, some away. Her boss's wife, standing near the grill, went rigid like someone had just whispered a family secret through a bullhorn. I didn't move, just raised my cup a little, like I was toasting the circus. You don't get to 17 years of marriage by reacting to every jab. But this wasn't a jab, it was a live broadcast. It was a line crossed, then trampled with pool floaties and laughter. The pool party had been pitched as a casual celebration, my wife's words. She'd been promoted to senior operations after clawing through 5 years of corporate Darwinism at a mid-sized logistics firm. I was happy for her. Genuinely. I bought her a Mont Blanc pen, drove her to the office that day, even ironed her blouse when she was running late. I'd moved for her, twice. Rebuilt my client list from scratch in 2 new cities. I never complained. That afternoon, I had no plans to humiliate her. I didn't even want to be there. But she insisted, "It's important you meet the team." Her exact phrase, "They need to see I have a stable home base." Funny in hindsight. But let me be clear. I didn't lose it. I didn't storm out. I didn't yank her out of the pool or shout something emotional and pathetic. No. I took a sip, pulled out my phone, stepped back behind the hedge by the lounge chairs, and hit record, because while she was screaming that her real man could handle her, I was already thinking in terms of evidence, language, optics, policy. 17 years will either make you reactive or strategic. I chose the latter, and hey, if you've read this far, do me a favor and hit that follow button. More than 90% of readers don't. And trust me, it helps keep the team motivated to keep sharing these stories. Appreciate it. Anyway, I didn't post it. Not then, not to social media, not to some vindictive chat thread. I didn't even save it to the cloud. I just tucked it into a private folder on my phone, labeled event footage. The rest of the afternoon unfolded like a parody of adult professionalism. Her boss, Rick, a walking HR liability in mirrored sunglasses and a spray tan, offered me a beer and a half-hearted, "She's just playing around, man." "Oh, I know," I said, keeping my tone flat. "She's very, expressive." His wife, Miranda, was quieter. She handed me a towel like she expected me to throw it over someone. I didn't. I just folded it over a chair and nodded. And my wife? She never looked back. Not once. She went from the pool to mingling with some regional client she'd been chasing for months, all wet hair and clinging lycra, laughing like this was a music video, not a workplace function. Her assistant, little 20-something intern with aviators, snapped photos like it was a concert. I even caught him swiping through a burst photo set later. I'm not a prude. I'm not insecure. But I am observant. And what I saw wasn't just boundary pushing, it was strategic dominance. In her world, hierarchy is everything. She wasn't just playing, she was displaying. She needed everyone to know she'd earned her spot in the boys' club. And I was just the stable home base, the loyal ornament who makes grilled salmon and pays the water bill. We left 2 hours later. She was buzzed, riding high on laughter and networking fumes. In the car, she was giddy. "Wasn't that fun?" she asked, adjusting the rear view to fix her hair. "Rick is such a goofball." "Yeah," I said. "You two looked real close." She smirked. "Oh, come on. It's just pool party energy." I didn't respond. She took my silence as agreement. That night, I watched the clip again, not out of self-pity, just analysis. The way she reached for Rick's head, the way he gripped her thighs, the exact phrasing of her little shout, "My real man can handle me," no slurred words, no drunken stumbles, clear voice, full command. In most companies, HR wouldn't care. But her company? It had just signed a harassment prevention pledge. Publicly, with board signatures and a press release. And the pool party? It was an official corporate event. Sponsored, catered, and, thanks to a very useful detail in the invite, recorded as a mandatory engagement for department heads, meaning anything that happened there was on the record. The next morning, she was already back to power blazers and espresso shots. She kissed my cheek and said, "I've got a one-on-one with Rick. Don't wait up. Could go long." I smiled. "Tell Rick I said thanks for the ride," I replied. She paused. What? The pool. Shoulders. You know. Strong guy. She gave me a look, half confusion, half warning. Don't be weird, it was a joke. Of course, I said, grabbing my laptop. Everyone loves a good workplace joke. She left. I opened a new email, drafted a subject line, attached the video. Then I waited. And that's when things started to shift. Monday started with her humming in the bathroom, mascara wand in one hand, phone in the other. Her reflection looked self-satisfied, like a woman who had successfully balanced ambition, charisma, and tequila shots without consequence. I made coffee, poured her a cup. She took a sip and smirked. God, I needed that. What a weekend. Do you even remember what you shouted? I asked, stirring my own. She scrunched her face. What, at the pool? She waved it off. Don't be dramatic, it's just a joke. Everyone was having fun. You're not still weird about that, are you? No, I said, smiling. Not weird, just curious how many people heard it. She rolled her eyes. Rick didn't care. We've known each other for years. It's not like I climbed him naked. I didn't reply. She grabbed her tote bag, gave me a peck on the cheek, and left with the same dismissiveness you'd give a handyman who took too long installing a faucet. But here's the thing about jokes. The only ones who think they're harmless are the ones telling them. At work, her day didn't go the way she expected. She texted me around 11:23 a.m. Weird vibe today. Rick barely said 2 words during our sync. Everyone's acting like someone died. 11:45 a.m. Did something happen? I didn't answer. Just closed my inbox and opened the company's public ethics code instead. Found it on their website right under the Diversity and Accountability tab. Newly redesigned, no less. There it was. Company-sponsored events are considered professional spaces. All participants are expected to conduct themselves according to internal behavioral guidelines, especially when interactions may include clients, vendors, or power dynamic sensitive relationships. Power dynamic sensitive. A mouthful, but it mattered. I took notes. Then I pulled the PDF version of their harassment reporting procedures. The words perception, visual documentation, and executive responsibility popped up enough to make me smirk. I cross-checked one more document, the event sponsorship acknowledgement form. And there it was, Rick's digital signature, confirming the event was logged as an official corporate function. My hands weren't shaking. No adrenaline, no emotion, just a weird sort of calm that felt foreign but good, like waiting on a chess opponent who doesn't know they've already lost their queen. By dinner, she was more subdued, poked at her pasta. People are being passive-aggressive. HR popped in on a leadership call and didn't say a word, just took notes. What's that about? Maybe they're just catching up, I offered. You know how HR loves a good meeting. She eyed me. Are you mad? Why would I be mad? I asked, sipping my wine. You're acting smug. Like you know something. I'm just listening. She didn't like that, not one bit. She dropped her fork a little too hard. It was a party, for God's sake. I didn't do anything. Sure, I said. But that's not really your call to make, is it? She blinked. Excuse me? Well, perception is everything now. That's what your company's been saying, right? One bad headline and the investors get twitchy. Her lips parted, then closed again. No rebuttal, no joke. That night, while she took a hot bath and listened to a podcast about owning your power, I finished my dossier, a short one, just links, policy excerpts, the video, labeled and sorted. I even included timestamps. I wasn't planning to send it yet, not until the right moment. Timing is everything, especially when you're dealing with someone who's never had to clean up their own mess. Because here's the thing. She didn't marry someone weak. She married someone who watched, documented, analyzed. I spent our entire marriage letting her feel smarter in the room, letting her take up the air, the space, the attention. That was my mistake. Now I was done clapping from the audience. She went to bed early that night, said she felt drained. I kissed her forehead and told her to rest. Then I opened my laptop, created a draft email, subject line, hostile work environment, no greeting, no fluff, just the footage, 3 links, 6 sentences, a carbon copy to HR, blind copy to legal, and, most importantly, a quiet BCC to a board member I once helped with a discrete investment pivot 3 years ago. I didn't hit send yet, just let it sit there in drafts. I wanted to sleep on it, let her have one last night of ignorant peace. Because when this bomb dropped, it wasn't just going to burn her, it was going to roast the entire ladder she climbed to get there. 3 days. That's how long I let it breathe. I watched her sip wine over client Zoom calls, laugh through recaps of how Rick's a little tense this week, and rehearse a panel speech she was set to give at an upcoming logistics summit in Phoenix. She was in full executive flow, hair curled, slides crisp, husband silent, everything in place. Or so she thought. The third night, she fell asleep on the couch, laptop open, PowerPoint deck half finished. There was a line on one slide that stuck with me. It read, "Culture isn't what you say, it's what you tolerate." Funny, she probably pulled it from some LinkedIn thought leader, but it stuck. Because now, I was done tolerating. I made tea, sat at my desk, rewatched the video twice, not for pleasure, not even to verify, just to get back into that moment. The wet slap of pool water, her laughter, that phrase, "My real man can handle me," echoing like a courtroom exhibit. I started the email, no greetings, no pleasantries. This wasn't a conversation. It was a trigger. Subject: hostile work environment. Body: attached is footage from company name's poolside executive event on date. The individuals depicted are senior leadership and their subordinates. The dynamic is self-evident. Company policy regarding professional boundaries and executive conduct is clear. This occurred during a company-mandated function. I trust you'll review accordingly. Attach the video. CC'd HR, CC'd legal, BCC'd Daniel Kessler, board member, husband to a woman I helped untangle a nasty equity freeze 2 years ago at a charity poker night. He owed me quiet favors. This would be one. I didn't ask for a reply. Didn't expect one. Emails like that aren't meant to start dialogue. They're meant to start clocks. Hit send, close the laptop, poured a glass of scotch, sat by the window with the lights off, watching the stillness of my cul-de-sac while somewhere in a corporate firewall, a file pinged into 5 inboxes like a virus. The first forward happened 11 minutes later. HR to internal counsel, then legal to risk and compliance, then compliance to external audit, and then the final tick. A second board member included in a blind forward, someone I didn't even know. 5 times, 10 minutes. I didn't get a single reply, not a whisper of acknowledgement. That's how you know it worked. When professionals go quiet, it's because they're organizing, circling wagons, checking exposure. My wife didn't notice a thing that night. She crawled into bed, but then mumbled something about needing an early Uber the next morning. I kissed her temple, said, "Sleep well." At 7:42 a.m. the next day, I saw it in her eyes. The first crack. She was staring at her phone while standing half-dressed by the kitchen table. Face blank, coffee forgotten. I kept my voice casual. "Everything okay?" She looked up too quickly, startled. "Yeah, just weird email. Compliance wants informal feedback on executive behavior at events." "Oh?" I said. "That sounds broad." She nodded slowly, not quite believing herself. "Yeah, probably just protocol. Someone probably spilled a drink or got handsy with a client." I smiled. "You'd know better than me." She squinted at me for a half-second longer than usual. That was the moment. The microscopic shift. She didn't know yet, but something in her animal brain registered a tremor. Something unseen had entered the room. She left for work 30 minutes later, her confidence slightly off balance. I didn't even watch her pull out of the driveway. I was already on my laptop watching the analytics. My private copy of the video had pinged a new IP external, non-corporate. That meant outside review had begun. Once an external eye sees something like that, the questions change from "did it happen" to "how many people knew," from "is this misconduct" to "what's the exposure cost." That's when executive heads roll. The best part? My name was nowhere in it. No metadata, no watermark. The video was scrubbed, sent from an encrypted temporary account that routed through a New Jersey-based business proxy, the kind I'd helped a friend set up years ago when his divorce got sticky. In her office, I imagined the silence, the cold air when the HR rep asked for a few minutes of her time, the confused tightness in her jaw, the faint sweat, the exact moment she'd realized that no, this wasn't just another email. This was a conversation she wasn't invited to. And the beauty of it, the party was on camera. The laughter, the audience, the clients. She'd made herself the main attraction. I just hit record. Now the walls were listening. By Friday, her voice had a tremor I hadn't heard in years. Not the fake, nervous laugh she used when clients pushed back on pricing, or the performative, oh my God, she trotted out when a colleague made an HR-friendly dirty joke. No, this was something different. It was brittle, strained, like she was trying to hold on to a narrative that was already slipping through her fingers. She came home an hour later than usual. No text, no heads up, just the garage door groaning open like it resented her too. She stepped inside carrying her heels, blazer half draped over her shoulder, the click of her key fob still echoing behind her. I glanced up from the couch. Long day? She dropped her bag harder than necessary on the entry bench and let out a tight, humorless laugh. Apparently we're having a surprise compliance audit. I kept my expression neutral. That sounds sudden. Yeah, she muttered, walking to the fridge. They're reviewing past events, looking for, what was the phrase? Ambiguous leadership behavior. Total witch hunt. I tilted my head. Weird. What brought that on? No one's saying. She poured herself a glass of wine, didn't bother with the glass, just swirled it in the bottle's neck and drank like she was late for something. And people are acting weird, like they stopped talking when I walked by. Rick's barely looked at me in 2 days. I didn't respond, just watched her from the corner of my eye. She took another sip, set the bottle down with a sharp clink, and went upstairs. An hour later, I found her in the guest room, not our bedroom, seated on the edge of the pull-out futon, staring at her phone like it had just insulted her. The light from the screen made her look older somehow, like her promotion had aged 10 years overnight. She didn't notice me at first, just kept scrolling, back, forth, refresh, then quietly, as if afraid even the walls would overhear. Why is HR asking about pool party footage? I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Footage? She jumped a little, looked over, tried to recover. Someone apparently filmed something. It's making the rounds internally. I played dumb. Like what? Rick doing a keg stand? She forced a smile, but it was hollow. No, something about inappropriate dynamics. Power imbalances, I don't know. It's vague. You mean someone filmed you? I asked. Just a hair too direct. She froze, then snapped. No, I mean, maybe, I don't know. It's anonymous. HR won't show the video. Sounds like something serious. I let that hang for a moment. I mean, if someone was, say, sitting on their boss's shoulders in a pool, half naked, shouting about real men, that could look bad. Her head snapped up, eyes narrowed. I don't remember saying that. But you did? She didn't answer. We sat in silence. Then she stood, walked to the mirror, and examined her face the way people do when they're wondering if they still look like someone other people respect. She touched her cheek, pulled her hair back like she was about to be interviewed by someone she feared. After a while, she muttered, "Someone reported it anonymously." I shrugged. Well, that's how those things usually go, right? Protect the whistleblower. Keep things clean. She turned toward me slowly, and for a split second I could see it. The flash of suspicion, like a mouse realizing the walls aren't where it left them. You've been quiet lately, she said. Just giving you space. You've been busy. I smiled. And I figured I'd stay out of your way, let the real man handle things. Her face didn't move, but her shoulders tensed, barely perceptible, but there, like a piano string tightening. Don't start, she whispered. Start what? This. I tilted my head. You mean the part where you're being investigated for harassment at your own celebration event? God, you're enjoying this, she snapped. This whole smug, superior thing, like you're waiting for me to fall. I shrugged again. I don't need to wait. That part's not up to me. She stared at me for a long time, and I could see the calculations behind her eyes, the ones she used to bluff male-dominated rooms, to steer mergers, to win client dinners where she wasn't even supposed to speak. But now her tools weren't working. Her usual weapons, charm, confidence, plausible deniability, had gone dull, because this wasn't gossip. It wasn't a rumor. It was a file, circulating, documented, and she had no idea how far it had already spread. Later that night, she tried to act normal, made popcorn, put on a documentary she didn't watch. Her phone stayed face down the whole time, vibrating like a distant earthquake. I didn't ask who was texting, she didn't offer, but once, just once, I heard her whisper under her breath as she stared blankly at the screen, "Who the hell would film that?" I didn't answer, because she wasn't asking me. Not yet. Monday morning started with silence. No humming in the bathroom. No podcast streaming through her Bluetooth speaker while she got dressed. No snappy heels echoing down the hallway as she marched into another week, ready to dominate whatever hapless manager had missed a KPI. She moved slowly, like someone walking into a battlefield where the bullets were quiet and paper cut sharp. She'd picked a navy pantsuit, not her usual bold red. Understated, respectable, nervous. I didn't ask anything while she got ready, just sipped my coffee, flipping through the local paper like I hadn't already read every major headline online at 6 a.m. She didn't say goodbye when she left, just the soft click of the door, and then quiet. At 11:08 a.m., the first ping, a text. Called into a closed door. That's all it said. No emoji, no exhale. I didn't reply. She wouldn't have read it anyway. By 12:12 p.m., I got the second one. Legal is here. 2 words, like she was calling in an airstrike. She came home 4 hours later, early, unannounced. Heard her come in, heels off immediately, bag hitting the floor, the unmistakable drag of someone who used to float into a room and now barely had the strength to stand in one. I waited, let her come to me. She found me in the living room. I was watching a documentary about volcanoes erupting under cities. Fitting, her face was washed out, not just pale, absent, no lipstick, hair tied back like she didn't want to be seen. Her jacket hung off one shoulder, and she still had her ID badge on. She never wore it home. "They brought me in," she said quietly as though it hadn't happened yet. "2 from HR and someone from legal, third-party counsel." I muted the TV. "Closed door?" She nodded, sat on the armrest across from me. "They didn't mention names. They asked questions." "What kind of questions?" "About conduct. At the pool party." I waited. She rubbed her face, took a breath. "They used terms like executive conduct, harassment optics, power imbalance at company events." She gave a hollow laugh. "I've used those phrases before. In trainings. I've delivered them to other people." "Guess they hit different when the suit's on the other side of the table," I said. She didn't take the bait. "I might be suspended, pending review. They said it could take a few weeks. Maybe more." She finally looked up at me. Her eyes weren't pleading, not yet, but they were searching, like she wanted to find a thread of logic in my face. Something to tell her this was all going to reset if she just found the right sentence to say. I met her stare. "Still think it was a joke?" She didn't answer, just stood up, walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of wine and took a long sip, then another. I watched her hands. They were shaking. "You know what scares me?" she asked, back still to me. "It's not even the suspension. It's that they wouldn't tell me who sent the footage. They just said it was being handled through appropriate internal channels." I leaned back in the chair. "That's protocol. They protect the source. Makes it cleaner." "But why?" she snapped, spinning toward me now. "Why would someone even film that? It was a party. Everyone was drinking. No one was complaining. Rick was laughing. Hell, you didn't even say anything." I tilted my head. "You're sure I didn't?" She froze again. And that's when it started. Not full-on realization, not yet, but the seed planted deep in her gut, the one that whispers maybe the walls weren't as secure as she thought. Maybe the perimeter had been breached a long time ago. She didn't ask directly, not that day, but I could feel the mental gears grinding. She was going to spiral. It was inevitable. She paced the kitchen for a while, her heels tapping a slow, chaotic rhythm like a broken metronome. Then she said something that caught me off guard, not for what it was, but for how honest it sounded. "They're not just reviewing me, they're reviewing Rick too. Someone said this isn't his first time being informal with a subordinate at an event." "Oh," I said, "that must complicate things." "Yeah," she muttered. "If they pin it all on him, maybe I'll just get reprimanded. And if they don't..." She didn't reply, just stood there. And for the first time, I think she realized she might not be the one driving the narrative anymore. The part that probably hurt the most wasn't the threat of losing her job. It was the loss of certainty, the silence that followed every question she asked. The walls were watching now, and she didn't even know where they were. The first ping came from a Reddit thread buried deep under a post titled Corporate Party Fails, NSF Yiddish, but HR Gold. It was your usual scroll of cringe, drunk VPs trying to break dance, an executive tripping into a fondue fountain, some guy in Phoenix who apparently tried to kiss a client mid-toast. Then there it was, grainy, low-res but unmistakable, the exact moment my wife mounted her boss's shoulders in the middle of the company pool, laughing like she'd just been crowned queen of the sales funnel. Right before she yelled, "My real man can handle me." Audio was faint, but audible. The reactions were clear, laughter, a few gasps. Someone in the background, probably an intern, saying, "Dude, is she serious?" before nervously chuckling and turning away. The post didn't name names, not explicitly, but it didn't have to. Someone had blurred the company logo on the banners half-heartedly. A reverse image search of the venue confirmed it was an executive resort commonly used by 3 logistics companies, hers being the largest. It took exactly 11 minutes before a user commented, "Is that Rick Lansing from company name?" And then the flood started. I wasn't the one who posted it, but I wasn't surprised it surfaced. When you set a fire in a dry forest, you don't need to tell the trees which way to burn. Elsewhere, the footage popped up again, this time in a Discord server I'd been quietly monitoring since a former consultant invited me months ago. The server was for junior compliance officers and legal interns who traded anonymized case studies for career advice and gossip. The file name? PW Year Imbalance Exec Event 2025, MP4 Subtle. That's where it got interesting. Because in that thread, the focus wasn't on her, not really, it was on Rick. Apparently, he'd shown up in a few similar whispers. Drunken karaoke with a marketing associate in Dallas, a canceled retreat in Tampa that was quietly restructured after someone's spouse threatened legal action. Nothing ever confirmed, no names ever mentioned, but people remembered, screenshots resurfaced, and suddenly this footage was the missing puzzle piece. HR couldn't ignore it now, not with it bouncing around 3 platforms, inching toward viral, not with their own corporate watermark visible in the corner of the tent canopy, not when 2 different whistleblower inboxes reportedly received anonymous submissions of an event video showcasing executive misconduct. One of those inboxes, external oversight. So now they had a pattern, and I had leverage. She came home that night distracted, carrying 2 phones, her personal and the company-issued one, which she wasn't even supposed to bring home except during international travel. She paced the kitchen while I cooked. Pasta. Simple. Familiar. "They want to review all event photos," she said, half talking to herself. "Every asset, internal and external. Apparently footage got out." "Footage?" I said innocently. "From where?" "Reddit, maybe, I don't know. Someone shared something." Her voice cracked. "It's everywhere." "Does it name you?" "Not directly, but Rick's name is in the comments. People are speculating. And my face is in it. Even if they don't tag me, anyone who knows me." She stopped. I waited. "They know." Her voice dropped. "They all know." I nodded slowly. Weird how fast things spread. She sat at the island stool, staring at the marble like it might reveal a loophole. "Rick's radioactive now. Legal said he's under temporary distancing protocol." Whatever that means. "It means no one wants to be near him when he goes down," I said flatly. She looked up, startled. "You think he's going down?" "I think HR's got a pattern now. And you're part of the most recent headline. Even if it's just proximity, that doesn't look good." She stared at me. "You're very calm about all this. I'm not the one who climbed on a married executive's shoulders while yelling about real men. That's not—" She stopped herself, swallowed hard. "It was a joke." "So is the stock price," I muttered. That night, her phone lit up every 8 minutes with emails, internal memos, and urgent leadership updates. The company had officially launched a full-scope review of leadership behavior during corporate-sponsored functions. Rick was placed on administrative leave by noon the next day. And her, she wasn't named, not yet, but the silence was deafening. No calls, no updates, no statements. Just the slow, steady drip of colleagues removing her from meeting invites. A lunch she was supposed to host got reassigned. Her assistant wouldn't return her messages. She was still standing. But the ground beneath her wasn't solid anymore. It was smoke and glass. Meanwhile, I was busy archiving every share, every comment, every timestamp, not to blackmail her, not even to hurt her, just to remember. Because one day, when she'd tried to rewrite the story, to soften the edges, to shift the narrative, I'd still have the raw footage. And so would the company. They brought in the suits, not the in-house compliance team, not HR with their stiff PowerPoints and pre-approved phrases, real suits. An outside risk and integrity firm from DC known for quiet interventions and internal hygiene overhauls. That's how you know the wound isn't superficial anymore. You don't call surgeons for paper cuts. I heard about it not from her, but from an article buried in a niche industry newsletter I subscribed to. It was 2 sentences long. Company name has retained external ethics consultancy Marlowe and Pierce to lead an internal review of executive leadership culture. Leadership culture, a phrase that feels like soft linen until it tightens around your throat. The Monday they arrived, she didn't go into the office. She wasn't told not to. She just wasn't told anything at all. The investigation had metastasized, no longer confined to the pool party or Rick's poor judgment. It was probing now, quiet and surgical. Vendor relationships, favoritism in promotions, expense reports with vague descriptions like client acquisition dinner or site review travel. I didn't need to eavesdrop. The signs were everywhere. Her laptop started auto-locking after 60 seconds. Her phone, once casually strewn on the kitchen island, now lived face down, on silent within reach. Her calendar cleared out day by day, meetings canceled, some without rescheduling. She tried to act like it was a welcome break. Honestly, she said one night over dinner, pushing half a grilled salmon around her plate, this might be good. I've been burnt out. I didn't say anything. She tried again the next night. They're looking into everything now, not just the event. Some people are panicking. Still nothing from me. By Wednesday, she stopped pretending. They're asking for justification on every bonus I approved since Q1. That's 3 dozen promotions. Half of them came from Rick's department, if there's even a pattern. Her voice trailed off. She didn't need to finish the sentence. We both knew how that pattern would look from the outside, especially now that Rick's name was in every back-channel Slack thread in the company. Do you think someone, set me up? She finally asked, sitting on the foot of our bed, ringing a throw pillow like it owed her answers. I closed my book slowly, looked at her. No, I said. I think you set yourself up. Someone just hit record. Her jaw clenched. I didn't raise my voice, didn't gloat. The best part of the truth is how it sounds louder when whispered. She tried to hold the line after that, clean up her image. She forwarded empathy-focused articles to her peers, retweeted corporate thought leaders, wrote a post on LinkedIn about how leaders must be accountable, even when no one's watching. I admit it was almost impressive. The speed at which she pivoted from alpha executive to humble steward of transparency. But the damage was already viral. She wasn't in the room anymore. She was on the screen. Every conversation she walked into, people had already seen the footage, already read the analysis, already made their conclusions. One afternoon, I found her in the garage sitting in the car, engine off, no music, just sitting. Trying to think, she said when I knocked on the window. I nodded. Think faster. She didn't respond, just blinked at me like she didn't recognize the man she was talking to. That weekend, she canceled her appearance at the Phoenix Summit, told them she had a family emergency. I didn't ask what kind. We didn't have one. She just needed to disappear before someone put her face next to Rick's on a screen labeled Case Study When Culture Fails. Every inch of her was unraveling, slowly, not with a scream, but with the careful tearing sound of threads snapping one by one. And me? I stayed quiet. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was a mirror. Every time she looked at me, she saw the gap between who she pretended to be and what she'd actually become. No yelling, no drama, just exposure and silence. It came on a Thursday night. She was upstairs, had been for hours, pacing the hallway on her phone, repeating the same sentence in a dozen different ways. I didn't approve that directly. No, it was through Rick. I was copied, not consulted. Yes, I have the receipts. I'll forward them tonight. Her voice, once commanding, had a new rhythm, measured, careful, like someone trying not to trigger a tripwire they could no longer see. I could tell from the pitch that this wasn't HR. It was damage control, legal, possibly PR. I was downstairs nursing a bourbon and staring at a blank document on my laptop when the call came in. Unknown number, Virginia area code. I almost didn't answer, but something in me did. Mr. Whitmore? A smooth voice said, polished, practiced, executive-grade warmth. Hope I'm not interrupting. This is James Rathmore. I'm on the board at company name. Pause. I've seen the footage. Another pause. And I believe I've seen enough to know who recorded it. I didn't respond right away, just stared at the fire crackling in the gas-lit hearth like it might offer commentary. He continued, You didn't distribute it publicly. You didn't attach your name. That's rare. Wasn't about attention, I said. No, he agreed. It was about leverage, control, and, in this case, ethics. There was something in his voice, not flattery, but recognition. A man who had played the game long enough to know a solid move when he saw it. He wasn't calling to scold me. He was calling because someone just moved a bishop where he didn't expect it. You've given us a reason to act, he said. Rick's been protected for years. Too many deals tied to his relationships. But behavior like this, caught on tape mid-function with leadership watching, that's unignorable. You're welcome, I said, sipping slowly. Don't mistake me, he added, voice tightening just a hair. This doesn't clear your wife. Proximity matters, but she wasn't our target. Not originally. She wasn't mine either. Silence on the line. Then, with unsettling calm, he said, I think we could use a mind like yours. I raised an eyebrow. We're implementing new compliance protocols, real ones, not just check-the-box seminars. If you're willing, I'd like to connect you with our chief ethics officer on a consulting basis, discreetly. I let it hang in the air for a moment. The wife upstairs, dodging blame, clawing at every thread of credibility. The husband downstairs, quiet, clean, invited in. I'm listening, I said, a breath through the receiver. Your background in regulatory navigation, freelance compliance analytics, wasn't it? I've reviewed your work. Of course he had. Would you consider advising us? He asked. From the outside, help us build something cleaner. And there it was, the invitation, the power shift, not loud, not public, just precise, surgical. I thought about it for 2 full seconds. Then, yes, another pause. Approval, wordless and satisfied, flowed through the line. I'll have my assistant send the paperwork tomorrow. Welcome aboard, Mr. Whitmore. Click. I sat there for a while, not smug, not victorious, just still. I looked at the untouched document on my screen, the one I'd planned to use to document the last few months. Now it had a new purpose, not revenge, not narrative, blueprints. Upstairs, she was still pacing, still defending, still unaware that the call that mattered didn't go to her phone. She came down half an hour later, tired, hollow-eyed, asked if I wanted to watch something, maybe unwind. I said no. She nodded slowly, like she'd expected it, walked back upstairs with the air of someone losing altitude 1 floor at a time. I poured another drink, because the game wasn't over, but the board had shifted. And now? Now I wasn't watching it play out from the sidelines anymore. I was consulting. It arrived in a thick white envelope, hand-delivered by courier at 8:47 a.m. No postage, no pretense, just the company's embossed logo in the upper left corner and her full name centered in black block letters, like it was a subpoena. She was still in pajamas, nursing a 3rd cup of coffee, trying to will herself into productivity she didn't actually have access to anymore. Her laptop sat open, but untouched. The company dashboard had been timing her out since Monday. I handed her the envelope silently. She looked at it like it might bite, then she opened it. Her face didn't twist, didn't flinch, it drained. Drained like a pipe had been cut, and all the blood in her body followed gravity downward. She didn't read it twice, she didn't have to. Indefinite leave pending further review, retention of title suspended, travel restricted, legal consultation recommended. No commentary, no warm phrases like "we appreciate your service" or "this does not reflect your value." Just institutional cold steel. When she finally spoke, her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. Not theatrical, not angry, just stripped. Did you do this to me? I stared at her for a long moment. Not cruelly, not with satisfaction, just steady. No, I said, you did it to yourself. I just provided clarity. She blinked. I don't know if it was the honesty or the finality that did it, but something in her broke. Not shattered, but folded, like a wall finally giving under the weight it was pretending didn't exist. She didn't cry, she didn't yell, she didn't even defend herself. That was new. Instead, she slid the letter back into the envelope, pressed it flat, smoothed the seal like it mattered, and left the room. Didn't say a word, didn't look back. I sat there listening to her walk up the stairs. Not stomping, just the measured steps of someone realizing they're no longer at the top of the staircase. 10 minutes passed, then 20, no movement upstairs, no creak of the floorboards, no sounds of drawers opening or suitcases being pulled, just quiet. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Your NDA draft will arrive this afternoon. Appreciate your discretion. The board was moving fast now. I leaned back in the chair, watching the sunlight hit the marble countertop where she'd stood just moments before. For years, she'd run this house like it was a branch office, schedules, deadlines, optimizations, but now she was the case study. That night, she didn't eat, didn't speak. Just sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone like the right notification might undo the last 3 weeks. I knew what she was doing, searching her name, scanning threads, reading between lines that weren't even about her. She thought staying quiet would protect her, that if she said nothing long enough, they'd forget. But the silence, it wasn't protecting her. It was isolating her. The empire she'd built wasn't made of glass. It was made of policy, culture, perception. And once perception turns, nothing about your job title matters. She reached out once, just before midnight, asked, "Do you think I can fix this?" I shook my head, not to mock her, just fact. It's not about fixing anymore, I said. It's about surviving. She lay back against the headboard and stared at the ceiling. I didn't think it mattered. It was just a stupid joke. Rick was always like that. He was, I agreed, but you weren't supposed to be. She didn't respond, because now she understood something I'd known for a while. When you build your career on being the exception to the rule, you only get one mistake, and someone always hits record. Weeks passed, the kind of weeks where time doesn't just move, it separates. Her world and mine, once tightly wound around commutes, grocery lists, and joint calendars, had split into distinct orbits. She spent most days in silence, phone in hand, scrolling through muted legal newsletters, waiting for emails that no longer came, staring down the collapse like she might outlast it by sheer stillness. I, on the other hand, had places to be. The morning of the presentation, I buttoned a tailored navy suit, nothing flashy, but sharp enough to be noticed, and clipped a new badge to the lapel, compliance advisor, external ethics oversight. Below it, my name. No department, no title inflation, just identity earned. The conference room wasn't grand, just clean, high ceilings, frosted glass, comfortable chairs, real leather, not vinyl. There were maybe a dozen of us seated around the table, legal counsel, ethics officers, board reps, a few consultants in from other divisions. The chief integrity officer stood at the front of the room, flipping through a short deck. Today's session is part of our ongoing leadership development track, real-world examples, practical boundaries, the kinds of mistakes that don't just break rules, they redefine them. Then she clicked to the slide. Muted video, full screen, the pool party. It played without sound. No music, no laughter, no voice. Just images. My wife on Rick's shoulders, her arms in the air, water splashing, interns watching, clients side-eyeing, assistants glancing away. The expressions said more than her voice ever did. At the bottom of the video frame, a soft banner faded in. Case study, ethical boundaries in hierarchical work environments. No names, no date, but everyone knew. The ones who needed to know anyway. The video paused on a still frame, her laughing, hand in her hair, Rick mid-turn, one hand too high on her thigh. The presenter continued, "This footage is used with permission as part of our internal compliance training. It represents a clear failure of judgment, optics, and power awareness during a professional function." Someone at the table shifted uncomfortably. Another scribbled a note. No one asked who they were. They didn't have to. Then the slide changed again. A white screen, black text. Special thanks. Source material provided by Jay Whitmore, compliance advisor. No applause, no fanfare, just a line, just clarity. I didn't look around. I didn't need to. This moment wasn't about recognition. It was about equilibrium, the final weight sliding into place on the scale. The meeting wrapped 20 minutes later. I shook hands with the presenter, signed off on the internal use agreement, and tucked my new Access badge into the inner pocket of my jacket. Outside, the air was cool, clean. The sun bounced off the building's mirrored facade in sharp lines. I stood there for a moment, letting the stillness settle. My phone buzzed. A text from her. First one in 4 days. Are you ever going to talk to me? I didn't answer. What could I say? I already had. Through policy, through structure, through every clipped syllable in a report she'd never see but would absolutely feel. She'd tried to humiliate me in front of her colleagues, her clients, her ladder. I didn't shout, I didn't fight, I didn't run. I rebuilt. And now she wasn't the story, she was the warning.